Baby, sleep. Let's be real. It's more like
Baby, sleep.
I can't even do a skip for this one. It gives me like PTSD. How did that woman from 19 Kids still count? It's probably the reason I only have 2. Focus. Don't hold your baby too much. What's too much? What does sleeping through the night really mean? College night out. Yep, my baby does that. Can we talk about that for a second? The baby doesn't even know day versus night. So I don't either anymore. Sleep training. I should have started it already. Rocking the baby is bad now too? Wait, when are you supposed to start this? Pick the baby up. This is crazy stuff. It's crying. I'm fine. I'm just gonna keep holding her like until they're 12. Wait, so if my baby sleeps 5 hours, it's good? Interval sleeping. How long does this really last? So people say, enjoy the time you have right now. Enjoy this phase with your baby.
At this rate, I'm not even gonna remember.
But when you decide to sleep train, people are like, oh my God, you're gonna traumatize your baby. Don't do that. Don't do this. Wait, don't do.
But you don't think this looks traumatizing?
What should you expect in terms of sleep throughout the different stages?
For the 0 to 3 months, I say that pretty much everything is on the table in terms of holding the baby, putting the baby in a swing, walking in a stroller, riding around in the car. You cannot hold your baby enough. It's really, important to throw away all of those healthy sleep expectations that you might have heard of, because your baby is in their 4th trimester, if anyone has heard that term before. So I think a lot of times parents get worried that they're going to start a bad habit by holding the baby when they're sleeping. That is not the case. So a brand new baby is not going to want to be awake for more than 45 minutes until they're going to sleep again. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is just try really hard not to have your baby be overstimulated and overtired. The other thing is to really work out if there's any feeding issues, because a lot of the parents who call me with, 4-week-olds, 6-week-olds, even up through 2 and 3 months, when there's like major sleep disruptions going on, it's usually a feeding issue. Once they reach about, between 3 and 6 months, it is good to start trying to put your baby down to sleep and start, working on a little bit of a routine, and their sleep will start to consolidate a little better. So, you will see some regular naps and some stretching out of their night sleep, which is great. Around 6 months, it's not true for every baby, but many babies are then able to put themselves to sleep. Once you reach about, a year old, babies shouldn't need feedings at night anymore unless there's some extenuating circumstance. And, they're going to start to consolidate their naps. By between 15 and 18 months, kiddos should be on one nap and be on one nap until they're in the 3s. There's going to always be things that disrupt sleep along the way. But once they reach, between 9 and 12 months, the baby should be able to consolidate their sleep.
What do you see as like the biggest issues that parents are doing that impacts how their child is sleeping?
Overhelping, I think, is one thing. Feeling like, and I know that I said that, you can't hold your baby enough when they're tiny, and that's true. But once they get a little bit older, I think some parents make the mistake of thinking that they always have to be held to sleep, or, they don't want to put them down in their crib. And so you can get into a cycle of the baby is not able to sleep unless they're on you. And once they reach that, 6 months age, it becomes a little bit harder to go about your day with holding a baby all the time. On the other side of the coin, a mistake parents make is thinking that they have to, quote unquote, sleep train their baby before the baby's ready to be put down on their own, thinking that, like I said, they're going to cause some bad habits. And so they're forcing a schedule or a routine or a certain, way of the baby falling asleep before the baby's ready.
What is it about that 6 months that kind of changes in terms of being able to even start sleep training?
At 6 months, babies' sleep mechanisms in their brain mature, and their digestive systems mature as well. That's why you see babies who are able to drop night feeds. Like they might not need 2 and 3 night feeds, and starting to be able to link their sleep cycles together, both during the day and at night. Some variation though, because that's another thing to point out, is every baby is different. So if you have a friend whose baby was sleeping 12 hours at 8 weeks, that's great, but that's an outlier. And that happens. That's just the range of, human behavior. So you could have a baby at 8 weeks that's ready to drop all of their night feeds, but you could have a 8-month-old that still needs a night feed.
Is it ever too late to start sleep training?
It is never too late to start sleep training. I've worked with toddlers up through 3 and 4 years old who have never gone to sleep on their own. Babies and kids are capable of independent sleep. And once they get a little bit older, they really want that. They want that feeling of independence and the ability to not depend on their parent to help them to sleep. It's part of, gaining autonomy.
What are some things that parents can try right away?
I think what's important to try right away is to put your baby down sometimes. I always tell parents the best time to kind of try that when they're little is at bedtime and then for the first nap of the day. So I'm talking about like between 3 and 6 months. If you're normally rocking your baby to sleep for every, nap or nighttime or feeding them to sleep, just try maybe at that first nap or again at bedtime to get them into that relaxed, comfortable state and just lay them down and see what happens. And you can sit by the crib, you can, pat, shush them, just be there. Doesn't mean you have to leave the room, but just to start building that skill of being able to put themselves to sleep, because in my experience, that's really the key. What I say is, sleep training to me is using a behavioral method to teach a baby or a toddler to go to sleep on their own. The key is to look at the foundations of healthy sleep before you go to a method. You need to make sure you have the sleep timing and duration right. So making sure the naps during the day line up with what their biological and developmental needs are before you work on the night. So I wouldn't tell a parent whose kids' naps are all over the place to go right into a leave and check kind of method where you put the baby down and then you leave the room and come back and check at intervals. Before you do any of that, you need to make sure that the sleep timing and duration is lined up throughout the day. And also their sleep environment, their feeding schedule, all of that. There's basically 2. You put the baby down awake and you leave the room, and then you come back and check on them at every few minutes. So I personally like to use you're checking every 5 minutes instead of gradually increasing the intervals. Just because I think every 5 minutes, the baby is not, or toddler is not wondering if you've disappeared. It's long enough to give them a chance to self-settle, but it's not too long that they've gone from protesting what's happening to being afraid. And the other method would be where you're staying in the room and offering some comfort to them, but intermittently, and then gradually kind of moving yourself out of the room over a period of days. So it's just really about finding what is the right fit for the kid and for mom and dad.
So when you think about finding an expert like yourself, what are some of the qualities, I guess, or qualifications someone should look for?
First thing I would look at is their philosophy on child sleep. Do they work with babies under 6 months and promise you that they'll get them sleeping through the night? Because like I said, not every baby is capable of it. The other thing is you want someone that doesn't subscribe to one narrow method. As I described, for example, with the gradual retreat method where you're sitting next to the bed and gradually moving your way out, there's some programs out there that only will focus on that one method. And my thing is, it's really not about the method. It's about the whole picture of what's happening. So you have to have someone who's willing to look beyond the just behavioral, intervention piece of, oh, your baby, nurses to sleep. So we have to break that habit and put them down in their crib awake. That's the very last piece of the puzzle. So you want someone who talks about a more holistic approach that looks at family dynamics and, just what the parents' expectations are and what the baby's really capable of. Whatever stride you make in sleep is going to disappear if it's not sustainable. Sometimes that involves really looking for help and resources, because moms a lot of times feel like they have to do it all themselves, or dads. I mean, I've worked with stay-at-home dads too, same thing.
What's the overall advice you would give for a new parent in terms of sleeping?
It's number one, trusting your gut and not comparing yourself to others. But number two, when you feel overwhelmed, reach out and get some help, because there's help out there for people to tell you the things that are not common sense. You're not supposed to have all the answers. My background is in social work. So before I was ever a sleep consultant or a mom even, I worked with families in, doing interventions, clinical interventions. So that's a huge piece of what I use with families is reading the room